All right. Lead us in. Lead us to the promised land, Spencer.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Figuring It Out. Welcome back to Figuring It Out. I can't talk. Once again, I don't know why I volunteered to do the intros, but we're tuning up on a Thursday with you guys.
Or whenever you're watching it.
Yeah, whenever you're watching it. But it releases on Thursday.
Yeah.
But rough start there.
That's funny. He said we're just keeping it real here at Figuring It Out.
Raw, uncut. This is it.
Uncut footage. This is us. This is all of us.
You guys have seen us mess up, and like where it hasn't been cut, and we're just like, all right, cut that. All right, so what do we do? And then we plan the question, and then the next thing is like Austin asked the question. Like,
I've talked to like 3 different people about that, and all of them have told me like they're super confused. They were just like, I have no idea what's going on.
I mean, rightfully so. I was like, what just happened? Is this part of it?
Yeah, it's just us. It's just 100% us. Like you said, raw, uncut footage.
Yeah, we're figuring it out how to work technology, how to do a podcast. That's what we're figuring it out. We have no idea.
Yes, sir.
But yes, so if you guys have questions or comments or anything, remember that you can email us at hello@bayhope.com, or if you have suggestions, send us a DM on Instagram. If you're on YouTube, you can see the scrolly bar below.
Scrolly bar. I like that.
Yeah, with our handles and with the email.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like I'm always wearing a sweatshirt when we're doing this.
Are you cold?
Well, yeah, it's cold inside. I told Austin I was gonna go on a rant, and so I'm gonna go on my rant.
Here we go. Okay, let's hear it.
Because Florida, I'm airing my grievances against Florida and Florida establishments because it's 90 degrees outside today, and
humid.
Yeah, and humid. So you might be wondering, like, why are you wearing a sweatshirt? Well, because it's freezing inside anywhere you go. Like, if you go to a restaurant, like, if you're outside sweating for a little bit and you go into a store and it's nice and cold, that's fine. But if you're going in to eat to like a restaurant or something, it could be like, I don't know what, like 65 or something like that's what it feels like. And you're freezing the entire time. And so there's no in between. Like, it needs to be like a solid like 73, I think.
73 on the dot?
73, yeah. That's a random temperature. But that's what I keep the office at work. I try to keep that at 73.
Oh, who does anybody change it?
Sometimes, yeah. I don't know who, but it'll go down to like 71 or 70.
That's what we really got to figure out. Who's messing with the who's messing with the third? That's going to be our next week's episode. Who's messing with the thermostat? And we're just going to walk through lists of usual suspects.
Yes, we'll do a whole like behind the scenes like interrogation.
Just sitting people down. Who's going to play good cop? Who's going to play bad cop? That's the real question.
That is a very good question. I don't know. Who do you think would be better at which?
I don't know. I feel like it all depends what kind of mood I'm in. Because if I'm like normal, like happy, smiling, like Austin, cool, great guy, like I couldn't play bad cop. But I don't know. Catch me when I'm tired. Catch me at like 7:30 on Monday, Wednesdays, or Fridays. That's when I have to get up for class at that time. But catch me at 7:30 Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, and I'll play bad cop.
See, that's the thing. I think either of us would struggle being a bad cop because they're both, like you said, very like smiley like people. Yeah. I think I could definitely put on an act of a bad cop. I don't know if anyone would buy it. Probably not. But
probably not. We're you know what our problem is, Spencer? We're just too nice. We're too nice.
Yeah, we don't want that label. We don't want the too nice label. I don't think we want that. But
yeah, no, we don't. But we're just all around great guys. Let's just go with that.
That's a great promotion. Yes, promotion of ourselves.
Not prideful at all.
No. Humble, handsome guys. That's But yeah, so I was sorry to go on my rant, but I was upset. Like there needs to be an in between. You know, I think it's dumb that it's. But I'm also a skinny guy, so like I'm cold anywhere.
Yeah, and you do have some people who are like naturally more cold, I guess, and or naturally more warm. I guess you could flip that the other way and say like, okay, like people want the air that cold. I only like it really cold when I sleep, but other than that, I'm like, I want to be warm. Like make it warm.
Exactly. Like it's
Not
you're not going
like,
to sleep in the restaurant.
Not sticky or humid, but warm, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So that was my rant. It was very negative, a negative rant. And we're obviously, like you said, we're not negative people. We're a positive podcast.
We're a positive podcast. Yeah. Only positive vibes here.
Part of the Positive Podcast Network.
Does that actually exist?
I don't know, but we should create it.
There we go. There it is. Forget Bay Hope TV. Positive Podcast Network.
We should make shirts.
We should. Trademark.
But what we need is, I've been thinking about this. All right, let me pitch you an idea.
All right.
So we need some ads. We don't have any ad reads. You know, a lot of podcasts that you listen to, I'm sure the listeners are familiar with other podcasts. They do ad reads on a lot of them. Like for a podcast that I helped work on before, we did one for it's like the Black Tux, I believe. And so we made like 10 cents anytime we mentioned, like when we read the ad. Obviously, we probably won't do that here.
Like, we won't do it for monetary reasons.
No, yeah. But I have this idea. Let me know what you think. So you guys, the listeners, should DM us like made up ad reads that we should casually read. Like just like we just work them in to like our podcast. And like just make up something absolutely ridiculous. And we have to read it. Obviously not inappropriate. It has to be inappropriate.
Disclaimer, we will not read anything that is inappropriate.
Yeah. So yes. So send us like ridiculous ad reads or just like a fake made up company or like a product or something like that. And we'll casually work it in to the podcast.
We'll casually drop them into the podcast. Yeah. I like that. Okay. I'm down with that.
You can get behind it.
I'm behind that 100%. All right. So you guys,
be hilarious.
You guys have your homework. You have your tasks. And again, you can reach us at hello@bayhope.com. We could get a lot of stuff from there. Or if you're on Instagram, you can search it. I'm going to read it for those awesome listeners on Spotify or Apple Music. My Instagram tag is just at Austin J. Slade. And then we have at Spencer_URB. Yes, Spencer Herb. So just feel free to reach out to us because we'd love to hear some of your fake business proposition names so that we can get sponsored.
yes, sponsor us, and we'll read out. We should come up like if they don't send us an entire ad read, if they just send us like a fake company and fake product, we have to come up with our own ad read. And like,
it's true.
I think that'd be hilarious.
All right, so there's the mission.
Send us it in.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. But today, I think we were kind of talking about this idea a little bit before. We were talking about the idea of living the uncomfortable lifestyle, right? And how, like, I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but how God calls us, and you read like the Gospels and you see this played out in the life of Christ, that God doesn't call us to comfort, physical comfort, emotional comfort, first and foremost, right? Rather, he calls us to follow him with all that we are. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. And that creates a little bit of a dilemma because it creates this kind of fork in the road. Like it's either I stay comfortable, I stay safe, I stay secure, or I risk it. I risk it and I might get burned, but I go out on a leap of faith and trust God, right?
Yeah.
And that can be intimidating.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I think that's like you said, it's the fork in the road. It's a big split between Christians because there's a lot of Christians who choose to live like just lukewarm and like just going through the motions. Like, yeah, I go to church, I listen to the worship radio, but I'm not gonna really put myself, out there on the front lines or like, really surrender everything to God because that means like he's gonna do something that maybe I don't want to do. And on the other hand, you have people just like, all right, I give it all up. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to surrender it all. Like I'm putting all of my chips in. And I think there's a huge divide between Christians and there's a guy who spoke to us in chapel back in college. And he said, these are the years where you decide like who you're going to be as a Christian. Are you going to be a lukewarm Christian, or are you going to be a witness? Like you choose, these are the years that you choose, because that's just how it's going to go. And so, maybe it's not like, maybe like later on in life, like you could like, oh man, like I have been living lukewarm, but I want to be a witness. And so it's not like depending on these years, but these years are important in forming like what you want to do, like how you want your life to go.
Exactly.
And so that's something that I've had a tough time coming to the like realization, is that like I'm not going to be comfortable in this life with Jesus, because like sure, part of me would love to just kick back and just kind of breeze through life and just live with no worries, no problems. So I'm just going to take it easy. But then I know that's not right. Like, and I know that that's not going to strengthen my relationship with God. That's not going to strengthen my relationship with others. And it's just kind of almost selfish. Almost it's just all about me. I want to be comfortable.
Yeah. And I think kind of the point you were hitting at is, and it's kind of something we talked about on a previous podcast episode, and it was the difference between joy and happiness, right? How this happiness is fleeting. And ultimately, comfort brings that happiness, right? That emotional experience. But following Christ produces this true joy. And I think the presence of joy doesn't mean we're always going to understand every single, like we're not going to completely understand the intricacies of the situation. We may not understand the why or the how behind the situation, behind the trial we may be going through. But the beautiful thing about this call to live an uncomfortable life is that Jesus promises to be our comfort, right? You see all throughout Scripture, all throughout even the Old Testament, God says, I am your comfort. I am me. I am the I am. And that's meant to be a comforting statement, right? Like God is supposed to be our comfort. So we really don't have to rely on physical circumstances, on people, on material, on relationships to bring us this comfort, because God said he would be our peace. He would be our rest. He would be our comfort. And I think that's the distinction that I know in my life, that's a distinction I miss out on a lot.
Oh, for sure. And like I said, right now, this time in our lives, our demographic for this podcast is going through a lot of change right now. Like you're finishing up college, you're going to be, working a full-time job and going to seminary. There's people who are maybe like displaced from their job because of COVID, or they're just getting out into the workplace, or maybe they're just starting to go to college. And so there's a lot of change happening right now. And we're searching for answers in certain things. Like I want to be comfortable. Like I'm uncomfortable. Like when we're uncomfortable, we want to be like, we look to things to find comfort. And so you made a good point, right? That Jesus is our comfort. And a lot of times that's not our first move. We don't go towards Jesus because like, we know he's there, but how am I going to find comfort right now in this moment? Even though like we know we can, but like that's not based on what the world has told us and what social media tells us. Like comfort is in other things. Like you said, there's like relationships, or, even just being content in your situation. We can be down about what's going on or our circumstances, but it's just kind of finding contentment, knowing that God is going to be with us. But
and I think, well, let me ask you this:
Man.
how do you purpose to live to find your comfort in Christ in the midst of uncomfortable circumstances? How do you go about that? Because that I think is it sounds great, but it's like, okay, but how?
Yeah, what are the action steps?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something that I'm still working on figuring out, because moving across the country was very uncomfortable for me. Like whole life, been in the Midwest, been, close to family, close to friends. And And so moving across to where I knew like no one, like that was uncomfortable. And so it took me a while to figure out where I could get, like, I was like, I'm uncomfortable. I'm not happy in these circumstances. Like this is hard. And so I think just like for me, I just continually sought God. And not always. Like I was bad at that. Like I had moments where I did not seek God at all. Like,
Mhm.
but I also have like kind of like kept going. Like I didn't give up. Like there was times where I didn't, but there's other time like over the course of like the 2 years, it's like I know I gotta just keep spending time with him and just keep seeking him. And I know that, he will, bring joy and comfort with him. But at the same time, like I have to realize that he calls us to be uncomfortable. And so switching that on in my brain is like I know I'm going to be uncomfortable. And so I almost kept seeking like situations that would make me uncomfortable. Like joining groups where I didn't know anyone, going out of my comfort zone and not just like sitting around twiddling my thumbs or whatever.
Yeah.
And so kind of just a combination of those things.
Yeah. And how would you say that you've experienced this joy amidst the uncomfort, the discomfort that is? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have. And I think by meeting people and just by seeing what God can do, in like this, even like this, like the podcast, like I said, I've helped with the podcast before, but I wasn't like, it wasn't just only me and another person. Like I wasn't one of the main,
your name wasn't in the title.
No, I wasn't one of the main people. And so it's like, being one of the main people for this, it's like, it's a little out of my comfort zone. But like God brought that about, and then we now have a good friendship, and God's doing some cool things, and we're hearing back about people saying, "Oh, I'm really glad that this podcast is out. Like I can connect with it." And so seeing how God can like move through that has been really cool, and that gives me a sense of joy. But at the same time, I think we can't get like complacent and just like, oh yeah, so I'm just gonna keep doing this. Like this is it. Like, sweet, we'll just do a podcast until we're like 60 years old, and like we're talking about the same things like year after year. No, I think we have to keep kind of seeking out, those uncomfortable things, like not being afraid to take those leaps and trusting God. Like, all right, once I'm comfortable, I'm just gonna stay here. No, you have to keep going and keep seeking God, and that will bring you to more uncomfortable circumstances.
Well, and if you look at it this way, you're absolutely right in that life is a journey, right? Like it's not just, you don't reach in life this peak where you say, I made it. Like I'm here, I've arrived, which it's tempting to kind of to think ahead and look ahead. So like for me, like if I could just graduate college, then I'd make it. In high school, I was like, if I could just get to college, then I'd have made it. That place doesn't exist. No. It doesn't exist in life. And that's important to recognize, because life is a journey. And as we grow on this journey of life, as we grow closer to each other and closer to God, God shows us different things, right? And those things are not comfortable. Those things, I do not like change. Yeah. I really don't. Every time I come back up to school, I have this culture shock. And there are other reasons for that, but like just for me, I don't like being displaced. Yeah. Right. And even in high school, I went through a little bit of that with like shifting between my dad's house and my mom's house. I didn't like being displaced, because I liked the rhythm, I liked the routine, and so. But something that God has shown me through those experiences is that He works the most powerfully and the most visibly in the times of discomfort. In the times of comfort, it's easy to kind of sit back, become complacent, like you said, and think, you know what, like God's right here with me. Like I don't really have to do anything extraordinary today. I can just kind of I can chill. I can rest, and rest has its place. But when we become complacent like that, we miss out. Right? We miss out on all that God is trying to show us, all that God is trying to do in us and through us. And I think back to some of the most uncomfortable situations in my life, some of the times where I've been the most displaced. I think even here, I was I was thinking about this the other day about the knowledge I had between when I was a freshman and I got here to the knowledge I have now, and I feel prepared and equipped to step into my calling, and that next step is seminary, and that growth did not come in a state of comfort. I have been very uncomfortable the past 4 years.
Yeah.
I've lived in a dorm room with 2 or 3 other guys, and it's close quarters, and it's like I have to purposely find places to rest and to just be alone and be with God. And that's uncomfortable, right? Because at home, I could go to my room and I could do my devotions there. But I think that is where God is trying to call each and every one of us out of this state of comfort and complacency and into this state of a faithful and a deep, intimate communion with Him, where we're trusting Him to walk with us and to help us through the discomfort.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: can you prepare for change, do you think? And like, how do you do that? Like, is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, the big changes in life, like, I'm gonna go off to college. Yeah, you can prepare for that. But you can only prepare, I think, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I think it's just you have to kind of train your spirit and your soul to you got it. Your heart is like this. Your soul is like this spiritual muscle. If you don't work it out, it's gonna just shrink, right? It's like physical muscles. If you don't work out your physical muscles, they're gonna shrink. And it's working out that spiritual muscle to say, okay, to when you get into discomfort, you don't. It's like I always think of the story of Peter when he's sinking, right? Peter immediately started flailing. When discomfort hit, he started flailing because he's like, Lord, I'm drowning. And Jesus almost so effortlessly just picked him up. and he walked on water. And that's a baffling story. But I feel like sometimes we can be in that position as well. We can be Peter in that scenario, and that when change comes or discomfort comes, we kind of start flailing around and we start to sink. But we have to train ourselves. We have to train our spirits to fix our eyes upon Jesus, upon God and His character and His unchanging character towards us, so that when change comes, we have a constant. We have a point that we can look to and say, hey, He's not going to change. Yeah. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and I can rest in that. And that's hard to do. I feel like I am not at that point yet, where I could say every time something hits, I run to Christ, right? It's a constant. It's my flesh I have to fight. Yeah. That just wants to kind of retreat and collapse.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with that is the start of that story is about him trusting Jesus, like to get out and to stand on the water, trusting that but then obviously we're shaking a little bit. And I think after I asked that question, I think we can only prepare to an extent, for a change that it's about to hit us, even especially if we're not seeing it coming, where it will hit us, but then we have to almost learn from that experience. I think, in that moment, he learned I need to just trust that God has got me. And I'm one to say that yes, I definitely have trust issues with God. I think we all do. It's tough. It's for some reason, we know. You say a lot, we know in our head that we can trust God, but it's moving to our heart. We have to get it to our heart, and in what we do and how we react to things. And so, we can only be so prepared for a change that we don't know might hit us, or even if we can prepare, we can only prepare so much, because who knows what God has ahead of us. Right. But like you said, I think that brings us much closer to Him, because we realize that, I can trust God. I can, and we're prepared for the next situation. And so in this stage of life where we're going through a bunch of change, it makes sense that we rely on God now, so that later on down the road, when we're older and other stuff is happening, we can rely on God then. And we know that from past experiences, I know I was maybe flailing in this moment. I felt like I've been flailing for a couple of years or whatever, just trying to get my, steady above water, my head above water. But we know that we can go back. God helped me out. God picked me up that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know he'll pick me up again.
Mm-hmm. One of my, as you were talking, I was thinking about this. One of my favorite verses that's just kind of been just ruminating in my mind the past couple of weeks is Isaiah 26:3, and it says it's Isaiah speaking to God in this particular part of his prophecy, and it says, "You will keep God, you will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed upon you." And that's cool when you hear that, but as most of you know, I'm a language nerd. I'm taking Hebrew right now. So when you look at that in the Hebrew, the word you'd expect there for perfect, like the adjective that's describing peace, it's not perfect. In fact, it's a word that's doubled. So the Hebrew word for peace is shalom. And so the Hebrew verse reads the verb and then shalom, shalom. And I saw that and I'm like, okay, wow, it's
Is it like a double negative?
It's meant to emphasize it, right? It's meant to punch it. And it's something that the Hebrew authors did to emphasize this idea of complete and whole peace that we can't even really describe. Because they didn't really know how to describe it, because it's this peace that Paul talks about it later in the New Testament. It's this peace that surpasses understanding. And so instead of just trying to use a lot of words, they just said, I'm going to double it. Like peace. So peace.
I'm going to start saying that when I leave a room. Peace, fellas.
Peace, guys. Peace. I'll see you later.
What did he just say?
Oh. But that, to me, it's just so powerful, because God says, hey, if you trust in me, and that word for trust means to lean, right? If you lean on me, if you walk with me, I'm going to keep you in this peace that you can't even really fully understand. And even amidst the change, even amidst the discomfort, even amidst the trial, even if you feel like you're sinking and you're flailing, God says, if you stay your mind upon me, I'm going to keep you in perfect peace. I'm the one that keeps you in this perfect peace, not you, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of things I feel like they've talked about that we just can't comprehend.
Yeah.
And, and I think we can look back on moments where we've experienced serious change or serious uncomfortableness and notice why was I peaceful? How did I manage?
Yeah.
Michael Scott's book, Somehow I Manage.
Somehow I managed ...
But it's how did I do that? And obviously it's by the strength and peace of God. How did I come through it? It's because of, like you said, an undescribable peace. And, I don't think sometimes we don't feel at peace, but we make it through. And I know last time we talked about going through the mud and really just trusting and leaning on God. And we noticed that we made it out. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, and that we can make it out of that.
Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing is, when we can't necessarily, when we may not see that light at the tunnel, we can operate with the absolute certainty that the one who does keep us in peace is in that tunnel with us, right?
Yeah.
He's always willing to reach out that hand, like he did in that story with Peter. When Peter was drowning, he's always willing to reach out his hand and pick us up and brush us off and help us to walk closer to him. And that is something that is so ultimately comforting. And that is how I can look back at some of the things I've been through and say, I was peaceful in that time. And it's because God, the peace of God kept me. He guarded me. And it's just, you can't really explain it. And you can't philosophically, you can't really say, it doesn't make sense. You can't logically walk through the argument and say, this is why I felt peace.
Yeah.
Sometimes, except say, literally, the presence of the living God, the presence of the living one. That's why I experience peace.
Peace, man.
Peace.
we need to add that to our list of shirt ideas.
A list of shirt ideas. I have so many shirt ideas.
We'll just keep adding to. We've got the Positive Podcast Network.
Positive Podcast Network. Peace. All in one episode. Wow, that you guys are
so
spoiled.
We've been so productive this podcast.
We have. We've accomplished so much. But hey, thank you guys again so much for tuning in each and every week. let us know how you've experienced this piece. If you haven't, if you feel like you're flailing, we just want to figure things out with you. But like we said before, you can reach out to us on all of our socials, Bay Hope socials as well. But until next time, we love you guys.
Don't forget, send us your ideas,
right.
send us your fake ad reads, and we'll read them here if
Yes.
they're appropriate.
If they're appropriate.
We have to get appropriate.
Big contingency. Yes, but hey, until next time, we love you guys. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.